Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the LOL Pro League. We're here for our grand finals tonight between Aces High and Thunderbot Sparta. My name is Munchables, and casting with me tonight is a Sigilus. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, and I'm really excited to cast this finals. Both of these teams had a pretty good run up here. Aces obviously falling into the lower bracket on a little bit further back in the tournament, but both teams actually beat Rock's Kiss to get into these finals. Now, obviously, Thunderbot beat him in the upper brackets. They're going to have a game advantage in this best of five, but we'll have to see if Aces can deal with that edge and just manage to get 3 wins within the next 4 games.
Yeah, and in those semi-finals, we did see Aces High beating Rock's Kiss 2-1, whereas Thunderbot managed to beat them 2-0. So Thunderbot potentially looking a little bit stronger coming into this, but we'll have to see if that is the case. We are going to head straight into picks and bans. Just before we do, I just obviously want to mention the massive prize pool we have for this. This best of five is fighting for $20,000. Absolutely massive prize pool. So really important for these players. But taking a look at the champion select, so far the bans coming out, we've got Azir and Gnar both being banned, very standard. And then LeBlanc and Lee Sin, not quite as standard coming out from Aces High.
Yeah, I mean, basically, if you look at the jungler meta right now, Lee Sin is pretty high up there as one of the top junglers, and Sean's is actually, it's one of his main champions, so banning it out against Thunderbot Sparta makes a decent amount of sense. The LeBlanc, Istari is very good on LeBlanc. We actually saw him do really well with it up against Rock's Kiss, I believe, in their semi-final games, in addition to a few other times during the tournament. So most of the bans coming out from Aces seem like targeted bans to me so far. And on the flip side, we've got Gnar and Janna being banned out by TBS, which are more generalistic bans, although the Azir definitely targeted towards Avenue. He has had some very impressive performances on that champion.
Yeah, we're going to see our first lock-in of this draft is going to be Aurelia. Fairly standard first pick, really. I mean, very safe laner. You can be very aggressive on that. Not many champions that do too well against Aurelia in that top lane. So more than comfortable to just lock that one in for the first pick, and that allows them to then use the rest of their picks to counter whatever Aces High pick.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they've got the Jarvan and Zed is very scary, though. I mean, those are really two great picks for your first rotation coming out of Aces. Zed has sort of come back in a big way this season, really starting to do some work, and Jarvan as well has, you know, ever since Worlds basically, has been a very dominant jungler yet again, and him and Lee Sin, I would argue, are kind of the top two at the moment. So with Lee Sin being banned out and Irelia going over the way of TBS, picking that up very early on makes a lot of sense for Aces.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as you say, Jarvan and Lee Sin, top two junglers right now. Arguably Rek'Sai as well, up there, but we'll have to see. I mean, Elise as well, sort of in the top five, I would say, but not quite at the same level that Jarvan is. I mean, you can just fit a Jarvan into any team composition whatsoever, but we're going to see our next two lock-ins, which is going to be Lucian and Thresh, so the bot lane being locked in here for TBS.
Yeah, I like this lock-in here, actually. They don't need to necessarily go for the counter pickup for the Zed straight away. Holding it back a little bit further does give them a bit more versatility, and the fact that Janna was banned out means that the Graves is a little bit less attractive. Obviously, Graves Janna is just an absolutely insane lane. So the fact that the Janna has been banned out makes Graves a little bit less attractive, and it means that they can pick the Lucian Thresh, which is, you know, comparatively to the Graves Janna a little bit weaker. So going for the Morgana Corki, I do like that. You know, it gives them a decent amount of all-in potential, especially past 6, but it also gives them the ability to deal with any aggression coming out of Thresh with that Black Shield, with the Valkyrie, that kind of stuff. So bottom lane should be fairly entertaining at the very least to watch, due to the fact that, you know, both these compositions, both these bot lanes have the ability to put down some serious pressure early on, and that's where we really start to see some of those crazy early game laning fights.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what this last pick is going to be from Aces. I kind of anticipate possibly Alessandra in that top lane. I mean, possibly it could even be the Zed top lane. I doubt that, though. I would expect that to go in the mid lane. Gonna be seeing a Zed versus Ahri mid lane, and really interestingly, a Sejuani locked in.
Yeah, I forget who it was I was talking to. It was one of the higher up players in another league I was casting. They were saying that Sejuani has actually been in a pretty good spot for a while now, but no one's really picked her up. And I've seen her starting to make her way into solo queue, sort of higher ratings in solo queue. Has a lot of upfront damage that, actually in the early game is quite hard to deal with. And her ultimate is just one of the best team fighting ultimates in the game. We are going to see the Lissandra pickup, like you were saying. Obviously, it's very good against the Irelia in lane, as far as anyone can be good against Irelia in lane. And also, one of the best pickups against an Ahri in the later stages because that Spirit Rush is countered so hard by Frozen Tomb.
Yeah, just a generally really strong pick at the minute as well. I mean, the way you could just one-shot minion waves and you can one-shot champions as well if you so wish. But looking across these teams, should have a very interesting game. I'm excited to see this Sejuani jungle in action. It's the first time I've seen a competitive Sejuani jungle since like season 2, maybe season 3. So should be good to see that kicking off. But looks to be quite an explosive game looking across these lanes.
All right, well, we're going to hop to a break real quick, guys. But when we get back, game 1 of the grand finals of LPL coming right up.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the LoL Pro League. We're heading straight into Game 1 between Aces High and Thunderbot Sparta. We did just have a little bit of a connection issue for one of the players there, but we're onto the rift now, and we're going to see both teams sort of mirroring each other as they head into the jungle. It looks like neither team wanting to be too aggressive, just wanting to protect their jungles.
Yeah, I mean, this is typically something that we see nowadays, basically getting those wards out early on, all the way down the river, even including the middle lane, which is kind of a newer addition to that strategy, just to make sure that no one's going to jump across that middle lane and surprise you on the other side of the jungle. Theocles is going to take a little bit of pressure here, but not a huge amount. You can see just there as well, what we were talking about in the pregame, one of the reasons why Sejuani is kind of becoming more popular is that early game damage is actually pretty significant.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I believe it does percentage damage as well, so obviously can be very, very powerful on that. And actually recently, speaking of Sejuani, AP Sejuani recently got nerfed as well, which I'm not 100% sure why. Not that many AP Sejuani players out there, but the scales, I believe, did get nerfed on that one. But looks like not much really going to happen in this level 1. Both teams just wanting to play it safe for this first game. Obviously, Thunderbot 1-0 up so far in this series. They did have that 1-0 advantage because they came from the winner's bracket. So they're going to be more than comfortable to just play it safe in this first game and make sure that they don't lose that lead that they already have.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a little bit of breathing room if they want to do something interesting, but I think, to be honest, feeling out how good Aces are is probably the best plan, because if you look at the record of the games that have been played so far in LPL, these teams actually haven't faced each other in a little while. Aces fell out of that winner's bracket in the first round, and because Thunderbot just went all the way through it, Aces haven't come up against them since the group stages, basically. And if you look at Aces' record since then, they've really just been on a tear. They went 2-0 in both of their quarterfinal, well, the games before the quarterfinals and the quarterfinal game they played. And then once they got to the semifinals, they went 2-1 against Rock's Kiss, who were arguably a favorite going into that. So if you're a Thunderbot, you got to be thinking maybe they've kind of upped their game a little bit here.
Yeah, quite possibly. And I mean, obviously, as you said, they've come a long way to get here. So taking a look across out this bot lane, both bot laners starting with the Gromp and with the Krugs, just wanting to get that early XP, making sure. Obviously, that is sort of the favoured strategy at the minute. It looks like Theocles wanting to be aggressive in this mid lane. We're going to see the Flag and Drag come through. There's the Ignite coming through from Avenue, but they're not quite going to have the damage to finish that one off. And Istari managing to survive it.
Yeah, the key thing there is the Star didn't even have to burn Flash. So he's not in a horrible position, especially if we see some pressure coming out of Sean's bot lane. Lune going in on a hook there.
Nice hook there from Lune, but not able to follow up. Ooh. Obviously, actually flashes out of there. Not 100% sure that was needed. I think he maybe could have got away. I guess he didn't want to take that much damage on the way out, however, and obviously the bind would have been up shortly, so... But a nice black shield there completely negated that engage from Thresh.
Yeah, that was a really nice counterplay there by Ace. Lune, I think the flash, although it wasn't strictly speaking necessary, does mean that they're going to be able to pressure in this lane a little bit more. Look at Steve in this top lane, by the way. That hit 10 style is just insane damage in these early stages. Saldren needs to be very careful not to get caught out here. He does have a Biscuit of Regeneration left. Holy Phoenix actually taking a lot of damage, though. Wow.
Yeah, they were being so aggressive here. Lune not able to follow through on his Q because of that Dark Bind from Noxiac. So nice play by him. And Noxiac doing a really good job so far in this bot lane to just negate any engages coming from TBS.
Yeah, and that's one of the best things about picking up that Morgana. It works so well against a Thresh lane because the Black Shield against both Flay and Death Sentence is amazing at stopping any kind of pressure. Theocles is actually catching Sean's out here in the jungle, and Sean's, even though he was higher health, having to back away there, that's one of the issues. I mean, Theocles is going to be doing a very big amount of damage in the early game in comparison with Sean's, so if they come across each other, it's definitely going the way of Theocles unless Sean has some backup.
Yeah, obviously that Dragon Strike passive for Jarvan does give a big chunk of damage when you on your first auto attack, and Sejuani not really going to have too much.
Ooh,
but right now we're going to see Istari in a lot of trouble. The Flag and Drag does land again, but yet again, Istari going to be able to get away without flashing. So despite Theocles investing quite a lot of time in this mid lane, they're not getting much out of it.
Yeah, I mean, the problem was that because they knew Sean's had to back up, that wasn't that risky a play for Theocles and Avenue to make, and as a result of that, they can really just keep putting down the pressure. Thaldrin in the top lane, he's not doing so well. If you look at the bot lane, Corki is down by about 6 CS. Theocles is really trying to pressure one lane hard, and he's kind of leaving his other lanes by the wayside. So far, it hasn't resulted in anything, though, and I definitely say that that is kind of an advantage going the way of Thunderbot.
I don't know, at the same time though, we do see a pretty significant CS lead coming across in favour of Zed, so while they haven't managed to pick up a kill or even a summoner, they have at least given Zed a slight lead in the lane.
I mean, he definitely does have a little bit more gold going his way as a result of that, but once Shans decides to come towards that middle lane, it could go a little bit differently without the Summer's Noxiac.
Could be in trouble here. The bind does go down onto Lune, but there's the Ignite. The Black Shield isn't going to save him. That's the first blood. The Ignite picking that one up for Lune. Now we're going to see Holy Phoenix trying to turn it around. No, so low, but he manages to get the heal off at the last second, just waiting for that Ignite to run out, and now Lune positioning so aggressively, throws out the death sentence, but it doesn't quite land.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what Noxiac's plan was there. If you look at the, the way he played that, he was just way too far up the lane. He didn't put down a ward in that side bush early enough on to deal with anything there. And I feel like that was a bit too aggressive. At the very least, if you're going forward to do that kind of a play, throwing the Black Shield on yourself as a precautionary measure is a very useful thing to do, and it's one of the reasons why you would pick a Morgana in this lane, so that you can deal with that kind of stuff. So not doing that was a big mistake, I would argue.
Yeah, I'd have to agree, and obviously paid for that with his life, and now Thunderbot Sparta are 1-0 up in this game, and that's going to give them a 500 gold lead. And now we see Aces High kicking off this dragon. They know that the bot lane and the mid lane just went to base, so we are going to see them starting that one off. Theocles so low on HP. If TBS check this, then he could go down, but they're not near enough to do anything about it. They are going to know that's happened. Obviously, the animation happens on Thaldrin in that top lane, so they know that the dragon's down, but nothing they could do to contest it.
Yeah, just not really anyone in position. Shans is trying really hard right now to just rush for that level 6. Obviously, once he gets his ultimate, that is going to be a big swinging point for his ganks. Glacial Prison is so good at locking people down, and because it's long-ranged, you can actually use it in the approach for a gank rather than closing the distance first with your Arctic Assault and then using it. So he's got the potential to do some serious damage once he picks that up. I think that's when we're going to really see Thunderbot turn it up a notch and start putting some serious pressure down. Theocles not able to get the red. Sean stealing that away is a big deal as well, really letting him build towards his level 6 faster than Theocles, especially when you consider the fact that Theocles has put down a lot of pressure, but hasn't actually got anything out of it yet. And that was a much better exchange in the bot lane, by the way. The Dark Shield there, coming out, stopping that death sentence, letting Holy Phoenix put down tons of pressure onto Lune.
Yeah, really nice exchange there in favour of Aces High. We saw at that red buff as well, I believe they wanted to give that red buff over to Steve. He headed down towards that area, but then obviously with Theocles in that next brush, they decided to just smite that one away. Didn't want to lose out on that advantage that they could take. But across the board, really, this game being very, very passive. Thunderbot Sparta, they've been trying to take some advantages where they can. This bot lane has been quite aggressive on their side, but obviously against the Morgana, it's hard to be that aggressive. And we've seen them invade that jungle for the red buff, but that's kind of all of the aggression we've seen across this game.
Yeah, I mean, basically this bot lane aggression, you normally wouldn't expect it to work that well. Thaldrin,
Thaldrin gets absolutely destroyed. The Sejuani ult followed by Charm. No chance for counterplay there.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the team composition coming out of Thunderbot, they are really good at picking people off. They've got a lot of CC. If they layer it well, it's going to be impossible to do anything about it. And if you get caught out in the jungle, the long-range initiation coming out of Shans is going to be really brutal to deal with. So that was very nice. Holy Phoenix actually...
Holy Phoenix could be in a lot of trouble. The box does get blocked out by that Black Shield, but takes a lot of damage in that engage. So, I mean... that is the Thresh ultimate down, but I don't think it's enough. Holy Phoenix getting ignited. He is very low. There's the last auto attack. That finishes him off. Now they're going on to Noxiac, but that's going to be the AD carry going down. Steve has teleported in as well. That's going to be Lune going down. Now Steve is trying to get out of there. A nice ult from Thaldrin to keep himself alive from Steve. Ooh. The bind has to get flashed away from Theocles. He was going very aggressively forward, so I thought he might even dive, but a nice little play there by Aces High.
That was a little bit too aggressive for my liking coming out of Thunderbot. You know, if you look at the situation they had, they were down their ultimates. The Ignite, you know, was pretty much all they had to really try and secure that, and they knew that both the teleports were up. So even if Steve came down, because of the fact that he was kind of lower on mana and Thaldrin was just going to be able to do a little bit more in that situation, I'm not sure it was the right decision to try and go that hard onto Holy Phoenix. Yes, they did get a kill. Yes, Nono is still fairly far ahead of Holy Phoenix. But giving Thaldrin 2 kills is not a situation you want to have when you've been shutting him down in lane so nicely up to that point.
Yeah, and now, I mean, look at farm. It's not even that he was that far behind in lane. Like, now he's only 7 CS down, as well as having those 2 kills up on Steve. So, actually, Steve could start to have a bit of a hard time now that Morellonomicon has been finished, and Steve is nowhere near finishing off his Triforce just yet.
Yeah, I mean, you'd expect the Triforce to be done at the earliest, maybe around the 15-minute mark, unless you're having some kind of insane game. So he's still on track, I would argue, but one of the big things about picking up that Morellonomicon is, of course, the fact that it reduces the healing effects on whoever it targets if they're below 50% health. So having that effect against an Irelia, who's going to be healing up a lot passively with that hit style with those Transcendent Blades, is going to allow for him to do a bit better in those skirmishes. Theocles needs to be a little bit careful. Noxiac coming up, helping him take out that ward, but see Sean's actually, he's spending a bit of time towards his top lane. And, yeah, need to be careful here, Lune.
Oh, the engage, goes on to Lune. He's in a lot of trouble. There's the death mark as well. Actually, the culling comes through. That could be Avenue going down. It is. Now Noxiac going to be the target. Ooh. Flashes away from the charm, though, so he's going to be able to survive. It turns into a 1-for-1 mid for support.
Actually, Thaldrin's coming down here. I'm not entirely sure this fight is going to be over yet. Sean's as well.
Noxiac, though, goes down to begin with, and that's going to be a 1-for-1 yet again. Thaldrin has used his ult, though. He could be in a lot of trouble. No, doesn't have any mana. He's trying to finish this one off. There's the flash forwards. The red buff is taken. He goes down. Sean's picking that one up, and there's the second kill. No picking one up. So, turns into a really nice trade for TBS.
That was really nice by Sean's, especially coming into that back line, just instantly popping someone and then joining up with his team. He's pretty tanky at the moment. You know, he's picked up 2 ruby crystals early on. He was able to tank up that tower for a decent amount of time, able to get into the fight in the last second heal, of course, coming out from Nono, keeping him alive. Very nice there. Holy Phoenix might be able to take this tower in return, though, so things not looking overly grim for Aces High. Of course, they've also got the dragon, so this game's still fairly even. But these fights are definitely looking like they're going the way of TBS at the moment.
Yeah, and I feel a lot of it is just down to TBS really knowing what each other are going to do. You saw the synergy there between Nono and Sean's. They just work together so well in that situation. And we'll have to see if they're able to keep that up. Lune has been caught out a couple of times now, though. So it all depends how Aces are able to play this Morgana pick that they have. They're able to just jump on one target if they can land the bind, or if Theocles can jump on someone and just lock them down so hard. It's down to whether they're able to get those picks that they need.
This is pretty bad news for Aces, actually. Holy Phoenix was too low mana to really stick around here, and now that he's having to go back, this dragon is looking very tasty for Thunderbot. I don't think they're going to have too much threat of a contest here. Although Thaldrin getting aggressed on could have actually been kind of bad for TBS there. Not sure they realized Avenue was right next to him. But look at how quick this dragon's falling. Theocles, the entry!
Oh, Theocles trying to go for it, and he goes down with the Cataclysm, but it's going to cost him his life and doesn't get the objective that he died for. Really not good news for Aces High there. TBS picking up another objective, and now they have a 2,000 gold lead as well as being even in Dragons.
Yeah, that was a really nice play by Steve, stopping Theocles from actually being able to go in there. Now Steve getting hit up here.
Going so aggressive. This is going to be Steve going down. A nice pick there by Noxiac.
Yeah, that was really nice timing of the Dark Binding. It was right before the recall was actually able to get off there. And of course, Thaldrin and Avenue being near enough to follow up meant that they were able to pick that up nicely. Looking towards this bot lane, I think it's interesting actually that, you know, Aces were able to pick up this tower before Thunderbot, where Thunderbot were arguably pretty far ahead in that lane for most of the time. That one failed attempt on Holy Phoenix's life basically resulted in the tower going down. And it's kind of brought Holy Phoenix back into it, I would argue, because basically he's able to roam a little bit more freely. He can decide whether he wants to go towards this bottom lane, go for some farm, or maybe roam towards that middle lane like he did earlier and pick up a tower. Whereas No, he's going to have to come back to this bottom lane a little bit more. That tower's not going to be shoving out the wave as frequently, and that does give Holy Phoenix a little bit of room to try and come back into this.
Yeah, I mean, Holy Phoenix is still significantly behind, but I mean, he's not as behind as he was, as you were saying, and Holy Phoenix is not an AD carry that you want to be catching up, especially on a champion like Corki, who towards this mid game is going to start to get incredibly strong. Does have 900 gold in his bag right now, only needs 1,200 to finish his Triforce off, so he'll be able to pick up that massive power spike fairly soon.
Yeah, and it's pretty close to being on time, to be honest. I was saying 15 minutes is kind of your ideal timing. Obviously, he has died once, and his farm is a little bit lackluster, so you'd be expecting him to get it slightly later than that. But really, he's keeping up with Irelia's Triforce purchase, and that's one of the big things here, because both of them are going to power spike around the same time. Middle lane, we actually see Thaldrun having to teleport in order to make sure that this tower stays alive. I'm not entirely sure that was necessary, and in addition to that, I'm not entirely sure that even if the tower would have fallen, that would be the best use of his time. Maybe pressuring that top lane a little bit more would have been more useful, but it seems like Aces High are really prioritizing staying up on towers at the moment. They do not want any of that global gold going over the way of TBS.
They certainly don't, and it looks like they're grouping up around this mid lane area, possibly in a reactionary way towards TBS, who had set up for that 5-man push before the TP came through. But it looks like Aces right now, they're not really in control of this game. TBS really deciding what happens in this game and where these teams are going to fight, really setting the pace at the minute.
Yeah, they're doing a good job of just applying lots of pressure around the map, and they've got the kind of team composition that is actually very good at that. They've got the ability to lock people up, find people in the jungle and burst them, and Thaldrun, look at that, by the way, in the top lane. He has started doing pretty significant damage over to Steve. Obviously, Steve needs to be very close to actually get his burst off, but now TBS finally picking up this bottom tower, which is a very nice objective for them to get. It means that No has a little bit more freedom about where he goes to on the map. However, likely going to be losing this top lane tower if Theocles decides to stick around. Looks like he's not going to. They're aware that Steve has decided to back out, and Thaldrun should just be able to pick that up by himself.
Yeah, so nice little pickup for them. They're going to be even in towers now. Actually, we're going to see Lune being very aggressive, but the Black Shield, yet again, so close to perfectly timed there. A millisecond too early. If he'd got that a second later, it would have been after the Black Shield timed out, and they possibly could have got a kill, but just a second too early there.
It would have been a little bit risky to go in there as well. They didn't realize it, but Avenue was waiting in the wings, so he would have been able to jump on one of them. Obviously, Sean's was there, but he was a little bit further back, didn't have, an easy way into that fight without Dark Passage being used. So, it could have gone badly for them. Overall, I think it was all right that he didn't time that that death sentence quite right. And now, looking towards this top lane, it looks like Lune actually wants to maybe come up here and put some pressure down onto Thaldrun, but he is out of there before there's even an opportunity for Lune to close the distance.
Certainly is, and now we see Aces High pushing in towards this bot side of the map, and they're going to be able to get a deep wood there in the red buff area, and that's going to let them know if No heads up towards this mid lane, or basically wherever anyone's moving inside that red side jungle. When they walk past that red buff, Aces are going to know all about it.
Yeah, they need to be careful not to put too much weight on that, though, because obviously if one of them were to come from that bottom side, and there's a decent chance that they would if they went down there to farm the wave, which is kind of stacking up right now in favor of Aces, then they might not be aware that an engagement is about to jump onto them, and there's only 30 seconds until this dragon, so there's definitely the possibility of a big fight happening in a second here.
Yeah, I would definitely expect both teams to want to try for this one. Neither team so significantly ahead that the other can't fight right now, I feel. And, I mean, we see TBS aggressing towards this mid lane tower right now. That's the bind goes out, doesn't quite land onto anyone. A nice death sentence onto Avenue, but they're not able to follow it through. And this is what I mean. Neither team really wants to commit to a fight because they know that this dragon is about to spawn. They don't want to die right now. I mean, if TBS committed there, they may have even got a mid tower off it. But if they died, they lose
Holy
that.
Phoenix!
Oh, Holy Phoenix gets caught though. But a nice flash black shield is just going to negate that completely. But that is Holy Phoenix's flash down now. Black Shield is on cooldown. There's going to be the ultimate. Doesn't land on anyone. Sean's unfortunately missing that one. And TBS not able to go for that engage that they wanted to go for. Now we see Theocles using that Cataclysm. Lune on this front line, he could be in trouble. He goes down. Avenue picking that kill up. Now the Deathmark goes onto Steve. He takes a lot of damage, but Zed gets burst down. Steve does not go down to the Deathmark. He manages to survive. Sean's on so little HP. He goes down as well. It's a 1 for 2 so far. 2 for 2 now. And both teams backing off after this crazy... Actually, I say that. No. He's going straight back in. Looks like Aces still have control of this Dragon Pit area, though. Steve having to base, but he has his teleport available.
Yeah, and that's one of the big things here. Steve's got the TP, Thaldrun does not. So Steve can go apply some pressure to this top lane, TP in a little bit later on. A lot of big ultimates were used in that fight. Like, we don't have Frozen Tomb available anymore. No Cataclysm, no Deathmark, no Soul Shackles. You know, that basically Aces have no ammunition for this next fight. They've got none of their big spells. On the flip side, Steve's got Transcendent Blades up. It's not the most impactful ultimate on the side of Thunderbot, but it is very useful in a big fight because you can get that damage down onto everyone. Obviously, it applies your hit 10 style, so he's going to be doing decent damage to everyone. And actually, Spirit Rush is going to be up for this next fight. So I'd like to see TBS kind of rush for this right now. They've got the opportunity to come in here. Whilst they see Thaldrun in the top lane, he doesn't have teleport. This is their golden opportunity to go for this dragon and be in an advantage. Holy Phoenix as well. Look at how low he is, just having to go back straight away.
Yeah, I would expect them to try and push for this. It's down to whether they have that knowledge, though, whether they've timed that teleport from Thaldrun. I would expect that they have, but they're not positioning too aggressively right now. They didn't have any wards in that red side jungle, so they don't know that Holy Phoenix is based. All they know is that they don't know where he is. A nice Death Sentence does land, but a beautiful Black Shield by Noxiac. Gonna decline that engage, and now we're going to see Theocles aggressed upon. There's the culling, there's the ultimate coming out from Sejuani, and he gets destroyed yet again. Those Sejuani ultimates doing so much for their team.
Yeah, they are just really strong at engaging those picks. And actually, the fact that it's down does mean that in a bigger fight, they're going to be a bit of a disadvantage. But Holy Phoenix needs to be careful here not to get caught out. The box going down just to zone.
The dragon does go down, but now we're going to see the fight going on. Thaldrun manages to get the ult onto Istari, but it's not able to finish him off. He's going to be able to jump away with that Spirit Rush, and now Thaldrun goes down. And it turns into a 2 for 0 with a dragon on the side of TBS as well. Beautiful for them.
Yeah, and Astari, I mean, he was on almost no health there, able to get away by the skin of his teeth. A really nice face of the mountain coming out from Lune there to keep him alive. Lune and Nono kind of need to back out here. Avenue's still full health. He's got his death mark. He's nearby. I'd be a bit cautious of farming that far up the lane, but really, TBS, they're starting to eke out a fairly significant advantage here. You know, they're up to, I believe, 2 dragons now. They're 12 for 7 in kills. They're 2k up, and they're only a tower down. So they're doing a really nice job across the board here. And with that most recent dragon, obviously giving them the tower damage bonus, I'm expecting to see some big sieges coming out here from Thunderbot Sparta.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they do go for that. Obviously, they definitely have the potential to go for something like that. And as well, with that combination of ultimates, the Sejuani followed by Charm, followed by Death Sentence, if they're in a siege situation, they can catch someone out and start a fight that way. And in all honesty, I don't think they'd be too afraid of diving right now. They do have a fairly significant lead, and if they're in a good situation to go for that dive, I would expect them to.
Yeah, and in addition to that, if things go wrong, their disengage is also pretty good. Firing out a Glacial Prison behind you is a really nice way of locking up everyone who's chasing you. Throwing the box down slows everyone up, and at that point, it's pretty much a simple matter of just backing away. Then they can turn around, put some poke down, maybe try for something a little bit later on. On the flip side, Aces do have a very strong engage if they can catch out one of the squishies like Nono, like Histari, with, you know, a Frozen Tomb, a Cataclysm, that kind of thing. They can really apply some significant pressure. So it's going to be a game of cat and mouse here. You know, can Aces find the right target with their hard engage? That's what they're looking to do in these fights. That's what's going to get them, you know, back into this game, basically.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they're able to pick out those fights, and those favourable fights more specifically, and able to get something off that. But looking across the board, we'll take some inventory of the items that we have on the board right now. We've got a Triforce and a Giant Spell on that Aurelia versus Morella, Nomicon, and Azonia's Hourglass. So both these top laners starting to feel very strong. Obviously, that Triforce is worth a lot of, not just in gold, but also in the amount it gives Aurelia is absolutely huge. And then that Giant Spell going to make her that bit tankier, whereas obviously we have a lot of damage on the side of that Lissandra. The Zonia's and the Morellonomicon going to give her a lot of AP, and also... Whoa, the damage coming out! There's going to be the culling! The ultimate is available for Thaldrin, but it's going to mean he does go down. Actually, the attack move used actually hits a minion, but now he's going to be able to finish that one off. Theocles in a lot of trouble as well. Sean's chasing that one. Lune getting caught by the Soul Shackles, throws out Death Sentence, doesn't quite land there, but now Theocles is so low, he's having to run away. The crit comes through, but it's not quite enough to finish off Holy Phoenix, and the Deathmark as well, not able to finish off. So neither AD carries goes down, but that's going to be the mid laner going down. Noxiac now on the front line, he goes down. Steve diving underneath the inhibitor tower for that one. And TBS, team fighting with such synergy, they're able to now push on towards this inhibitor tower, and they should be able to get an inhibitor off this.
Yeah, that was a really solid fight from TBS. And one thing I wanted to touch on when we were talking about inventory earlier on, the early QSS being picked up by Nono. That pays dividends for him there. He can get away from the death mark, but it also means if he gets hit by, the stun from Soul Shackles, he gets hit by a Dark Binding, Frozen Tomb, that item does so much for him against this composition, and it really worked very nicely there because it baited Avenue into going way further than he really could afford to. They got an inhibitor out of it. Thunderbot are in dominating form right now, and with a one-game lead already in the Grand Finals, Aces have got to be shaking in their boots here. They need to really pull it out if they want to come back into this.
They certainly do. They definitely don't want to get into a situation where they are 2-0 down. That's going to be incredibly hard to come back from. So we'll have to see. I mean, what do you do if you're Aces High in this scenario? You're not quite out of the game, but what should be their target right now?
They really need to have a more comprehensive fight than what that was. I mean, Thaldrin getting caught out there, if you don't have the Frozen Tomb to use on Nono or Astari, you basically can't deal with the composition of Thunderbot Sparta. I mean, Thaldrin is a key component to their team fight, because Astari and Nono, if they can just roam freely around the fight, which they basically can do without the Frozen Tomb going on one of them, they can pick out all your targets, because your only front line is Theocles. He's not that tanky yet, especially against Nono. I mean, if you look at the itemization he's going for, he's got the magic resist from Hex Drinker, but no armor basically yet. It's very hard for them to actually fight without Frozen Tomb, and they need to be as 5 dealing with 4 or 5 members of Thunderbot Sparta. I would even be inclined to say that if Steve is split pushing, that's okay. They don't send Thaldrin to deal with that, and instead, they just make sure that he's not going to have his teleport shut down or anything, and he can go in there. Holy Phoenix, oh man!
The Glacial Prison actually used that over the wall very long range, and they're not going to be able to capitalize on that. If Aces High group up in this bot lane now, they could have an advantage for this next team fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a good thing that the Glacial Prison isn't available. However, if you look at how far ahead Thunderbot Sparta are, it's not game-breaking for them, right? They can still do a good job in this next fight, regardless of that, so long as they get engaged on but successfully disengage. Their engagement is kind of shot now. They don't have the Glacial Prison. That's a big part of what allows them to pick someone off and really CC them down whilst they burst them. But if they get engaged on, they've definitely still got the ability to turn around and really put down some pain. That dragon was taken completely for free by them as well, so they are really starting to pull ahead by leaps and bounds in this bot lane. They're putting down the pressure. Look at Aces High right now. They have to split up even with one person in the middle lane. There's no champions from Thunderbot in that middle lane, but because of the super minions being there so early on, they've got to basically send Theocles there, and he's one of their biggest engagement threats, right? Without having him and Thaldrin about, their engagement is non-existent. They are not going to be able to catch anyone out. So, oh man, the charm lands on Noxiac.
The charm lands onto Noxiac. He's going to get taken very low, but he doesn't quite go down. A Death Sentence onto Theocles as well. They're getting some good damage across. There's the Death Mark, though, onto Istari. Can he finish it off? He has to jump back. Steve jumping straight in onto this front line. Thaldrin able to get the CC down onto him. Everybody getting so low, but nobody on TPS really going down. It's 2 for 1 so far. The TBS, sorry, doing a good job to stay in this one. The culling not quite going to be able to take down Holy Phoenix. He was on full HP, and That Black Shield going to protect him a little bit, but now they are so
Oh,
low. That's going to be the
Theocles.
engage from Theocles. That's one going down. It's a 1-for-1 so far. Holy Phoenix has to jump away from this one. Does not want to fight Nono right now. And TBS being so aggressive despite the low health bars underneath that tower.
That was actually a pretty good defense by Aces High, to be honest. I mean, if you look at the Frozen Tomb that came out there by Thaldrin, it hit every single member, and he's got some AP right now. He is no slouch when it comes to damage. That AoE really meant that they were able to stay in the fight. No, whoa!
Oh, Holy Phoenix could be in trouble. Actually, manages to get a kill onto Nono. Now Steve is going to be on the front line. He gets taken down. Holy Phoenix is doing work for his team. There's the heal coming out. Istari going to use that Spirit Rush to get away from that one. Holy Phenix knows better than to chase an Ahri into the brush.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Istari being low on mana meant that maybe he would be able to pick something up there, but I would argue that even a charm would have been enough to just finish off Holy Phoenix, or at the very least make sure that he got away. So backing up there makes a lot of sense, but like I was talking about, that was actually really good defense. Sean's getting flashed on. Cataclysm is down, and a counter flash coming out of Sean's there, but that bit there was a little bit less good for Aces High. Flash and Cataclysm being down on Theocles is really bad news, especially if Thunderbot decided to go for a Baron here or something to that, like that basically. But yeah, that defense was pretty good by Aces High. They're showing that they're still in it for sure.
Yeah, imagine if Sejuani hadn't had Flash right there, that potentially was a Baron opportunity for Aces High. Had they managed to get that pick that they tried so hard for just there, but unfortunately for Aces High, Sean's did have his Flash available, so they're not able to get anything off the back of that. And as you say, that's going to be the Cataclysm down, so they really can't afford to fight for the next couple of minutes until that's back up again.
Yeah, it's an important ability for them. I'm kind of surprised that Aces actually went on that. Like, obviously, had Sean's not had Flash, it would have been great, but they should have the timing on Sean's Flash. I mean, these are really good teams. You time the flashes of your enemies in competitive play. He knew that it was up, but still decided to commit for it. Maybe they think that the Flash is worth more on Sean's than it is on Theocles, and that was actually a play to burn it, and they intended on not fighting for a while afterwards. That could be the case, but it was a little bit weird. Now TBS, they're trying to pressure this mid lane. The inhibitor is open in the middle lane, so this is a great location for them to put pressure down. Steve does not have teleport right now, so they've got to go as 5 right in this mid lane. And there's actually a big wave pushing for Aces High in the bottom lane. So Ace is not in the worst position here, but they need to get a good team fight off. They need to lock down Nono or Istari and really start things off well.
Well, that's going to be the death sentence going down onto Theocles. Culling used already, but Thaldrin gets burst down, doesn't even get a chance to use his ultimate. This is really bad for Aces High. There's the death sentence onto Theocles. He goes down as well. Lune getting caught by the bind there, but it's not enough. This is going to be the first Nexus turret going down. The Soul Shackles is used, but he immediately flashes out. There's the death mark. It's not going to be enough to kill anyone, though. Sean's has more than enough armor, and the members of Aces High are dropping like flies. This is going to be game 1 going over to Thunderbot. Actually, Noxiac able to pick up a counter kill onto Steve, but it's not going to be enough. 10 seconds until Thaldrin's back up. This is going to be the Nexus going down. GG, well played to TBS.
Really solid game coming out of Thunderbot Sparta here, and you know, I would argue a significantly less solid game actually coming out of Aces High. Some of the plays they made this game really were just a little bit poorly informed. They extended a bit more than they could afford to, and as a result of that, TBS just crushed them as the game went on. They started off with a small lead, and they just eked out more and more until they were in dominating form. Thaldrin, by the way, got caught so many times in this game that really just secured huge fights for Thunderbot Sparta. I'm expecting more from him next game. He really needs to smarten up if he's going to be able to deal with this Thunderbot team. There is only one game left for Thunderbot to win the entire Grand Finals. Aces are on the ropes.
Yeah, really impressed by Steve as well that game. After Thaldrin got those 2 early kills, Steve still able to win out that lane. But we are going to head into a short break before we head into game 2. Thunderbot Sparta 2-0 up right now. Aces High are on the ropes. Don't go anywhere. Let's see if they can come back.